Thank you, friend. Shabbat Shalom. It's always a pleasure to see you. This week we had a harvest moon on the night of the 8th. It's a term you don't hear that much anymore. Maybe because we are less concerned with it shining on, and many may not know just what it is. A harvest moon is the full moon that's closest to the autumn equinox, and the autumn equinox is supposed to be the date of, and this year ushers in, Rosh Hashanah. And I love when they line up so nicely. And it wasn't just a harvest moon, but a super moon. What a great name, a super moon. And a super moon occurs when the moon turns full at its closest point to Earth. And all of you on the West Coast will have noticed, I am sure, that high tides climb extra high and low tides fall exceptionally low. So be careful out there. Now, I've had a few comments lately from people who love the different things they hear and learn from when they grew up. And it's the same when I do a wedding or a service. And I try and bring a universalist approach to the spirit and work on inclusivity, not exclusivity. And I'm thrilled that we get comments from people of all faith and of no faith and everything in between. I try and use these weekly sessions to educate and break down the divisive barriers that separate us for no reason. And I will quote from various branches and disciplines because everybody has something to say. The deeper you go, the higher you fly. The higher you fly, the deeper you go. So come on. Friends, one of my personal goals is to be conscious as much of the time as possible. And I would think that almost all of you have that also as one of your goals. And when we are present or conscious, we see that there really is a divine plan in our lives, and that it is happening right now. We were told and know that we are a holy people, and so we are, each and every one of us, holy to God. And so consciously participating in the miraculous unfolding of reality is the holy work that we do. And it is a great source of satisfaction that you can have. You are unfolding as you are meant to do. And this is the time of the year to examine your goals, your relationships, your promises, your wants and needs. Do not forget, friends, be kind to yourself. Forgive yourself, not just others. And as we get closer to the time of great questions, one of the things I love about this Torah portion, friends, is not for what it says, but for what it ultimately begs us to ask. The people are about to cross the Jordan, and this parsha talks about the offering of the first fruits and about tithing. And friends, tithing is a topic talked about in various parshas, and one talked about ever since this was written. The word is derived from the Old English meaning a tenth, but it is mentioned in 3 of the 5 books of the Torah. And there was an organized 3-year cycle for tithing, the 3rd year being called the year of tithing, which was like a tax, where this parsha tells us 1/10 of the proceeds were to be given to the Levites, to the strangers and aliens, the orphans and the widows, those in service of God and the indigent. Underlying so many of the laws, as we saw last week and as we've seen before, was a tight connection to humanity. And one of our great sages, Rav, talked about how the Mishnah teaches us about fulfilling our moral obligation to tithe, because there is a moral obligation to do so, and it should be done based on our outgoing levels of responsibility. Our primary responsibility is for the welfare of our family. Afterwards would come our moral obligation to our community, then our concern for all human beings, and finally for all creatures. So we're moving outwards. And I guess it's how you define things in the lines you draw. And I've seen those who contribute nothing beyond their immediate family, even if they could, because of where they draw their line. And so humanity and the creatures we share the world with go by the wayside. I do try and include the family of man and the family of creatures in my moral obligations. Maybe not spiders or centipedes, but almost everything else I do. And from this tax, there was a prohibition from giving it to the dead, because in those days, friends, there were many offerings intended to nourish the spirits of the dead. And it was only from this particular donation that you could not partake of this, because this offering was consecrated for the needy and could not be made ritually impure by entering a burial site. With centralization of worship, this practice diminished altogether. And if you think this is strange, you should be in Mexico during the Day of the Dead festival. And I would like to thank those of you who continue to donate to us, because your donations sustain our ability to keep presenting these weekly parshas. And there is a donate button on the webpage, so thank you. Now, there's an amazing section on inscribing the giant stela and placing them on the mountains, which we talked about a few weeks ago. And then there's a significant repetition of the Leviticus section on blessings and curses, with the curses taking 4 times as much space as the blessings. Before, in Leviticus, they only took 3 times as much space. So I guess the people have digressed. Last week, friends, our parsha was When You'll Go. And this week we have Ki Tavo, When You'll Come. And I certainly have to admit, there are times that I don't know if I'm coming or going. So here we are, 2 weeks in a row, being told. When you'll come to the land that Adonai your God is giving you as a legacy. It is about the land and about the crops on that land. And friends, this week's Parsha brings the first actual liturgy in the Torah, and it is an agricultural one connected to harvesting crops. How apropos that we have a harvest moon for a Parsha talking about the harvest. You can't write that. And friends, this week marks a very special harvest moon. And of course, it brings to mind Neil Young's fantastic song and album of 1992, Harvest Moon. And it's a special one for our friend Bob, his wife Cindy, and their son Noah, who is getting married on the evening of the 13th. And we wish the very best for you all. And I will say, Baruchim Habayim B'Shem Adonai. Blessed are you when you'll come there in dedication to all that is loving, good, and sacred. Blessed are you when you'll come in the name of God. And Noah, for you and your beloved on your wedding, I would like to add, Mi Adir Al Hakol Mi Baruch Al Hakol Mi Gadol Al Hakol. Yevarech et Hechatan ve'et Hakala. May the source of life sustain you. May all that is noble and true in the universe inspire your lives together and bring peace to you and to all humankind. And friends, this week also marks my wonderful wife's and fantastic daughter's birthday. Happy birthday to you both. May all your dreams come true. And I'm reminded of the first verse of Wedding Song from Planet Waves. I love you more than ever, more than time and more than love. I love you more than money and more than the stars above. I love you more than madness, more than waves upon the sea. I love you more than life itself. You mean that much to me. And for all you friends and lovers out there, blessings to you all. Friends, Deuteronomy 26:1 through 26:14 is about harvesting and bringing your bounty to the priests and giving thanks. And this first actual Torah liturgy is for farmers because, friends, this was an agrarian nation. From the first yields of the land, there was to be an offering to God. And while neither the amount nor the type is specified, early rabbis understood it to be Shivat Haminim, the 7 items that the land was famous for. And here we have the actual instruction and wording for prayer and for ritual. And by the time of this book, this liturgy would have been recited by each farmer when he brought the offering. The farmer would recite Deuteronomy 26:3, hand the offering to the priest, and then continue the recitation. And the prosperity of the farmer, reflected in the specimens brought to the sanctuary, would be connected to Abraham and Joseph, as he would recall how his forefathers were almost dying from starvation when they went down to Egypt, where they would be ultimately enslaved, and which becomes one of the threats in the subsequent series of curses. This transference from celebration of the first fruits to remembering and honoring history is a very powerful tool. The changes in the liturgy from being a praising for crop fertility, like pagans would do, to a retelling of history, provide an entirely different emphasis. And friends, the other liturgy that we get from this book, like the Shema and the Birkat Hamazon, the grace after meals or benching, were culled from this book at much, much later dates. And we're reminded then of the two mountains, which will house the stela with the blessings and curses carved upon them on either side. And friends, carving the words of this teaching, or Torah, would have created an extremely powerful image. And even though Moses tells the people that this day you have become a people to the Lord, friends, the great epiphany always was and always will be in Exodus at the Sinai, not here. And the great list of things to review before the High Holy Days begins. And here's a fascinating summation of a list of acts which bring the curses. And friends, there are 12 of them, one for each tribe, and they include things like having molten images, parental disrespect, stealing your neighbor's land, misleading the blind. And friends, make no mistake, we all can be blind. Partaking in any of the forbidden sexual relations, abuse of an alien or orphan, taking a bribe, culminating in not upholding the words of the Torah. So friends, the catch may be that you have to do everything or you are cursed. Most of the prohibitions are easy to agree to. They are uncommon and easy to avoid. And so the people would readily say, okay, to them. But the last is different. This final curse is on anyone who doesn't uphold the full Torah, the Torah as a whole. The people have been led to the point where they must say amen to the whole thing. And I'm not sure that they realize the ramifications of that. All of Deuteronomy saw Moses talking facts. But now he's about to deliver his final message, and it is philosophical. He will end this parsha by saying, and you shall observe the words of this covenant and do them so that you'll understand all that you'll do. We have come full circle from Genesis and Eden and the beginning, when woman sought to understand. In the garden, the woman was attracted to the fruit of the tree of knowledge because it will bring about understanding. The ability is acquired by eating the forbidden fruit, the fruit that would make them like God. This is now only the second time that word is used in the Bible. The past, the future, the miracles, the covenant, all now within human power to grasp, understanding what they experienced and what they will do. And friends, this parsha contains one of the few differences between what is read, the kareh, and what is written, the ketib. And when reading in the synagogue, Jewish law stipulates it is the kareh, or reading, to be pronounced, and not the ketib, or writing. And the law also requires the scroll to be written according to the ketib, the writing, so much so that substituting the kareh invalidates the entire scroll. Deuteronomy 28:30 in the list of curses says, you'll betroth a woman and another man will ravish her. That is the ketib, what is written. But a milder term, yishka ben lie with her, is substituted in the reading. That is the kareh. So even though ravish is written, we must say lie with. And the section culminates in a curse of a wandering people, where there won't be a resting place for your foot. This is another expression from Genesis. When Noah lets the dove go, and it does not find a resting place for its foot. The helplessness of the dove with no place to go turns out to be a metaphor for the condition of the people of Israel if they fail to uphold the covenant. And they face the unimaginable, friends, back to Egypt. And this nightmare does take place, subsequent to the Babylonian destruction of Jerusalem, described at the end of the book of Kings in 2 Kings 25-26. All the people, from the smallest to the biggest, got up and came to Egypt, as the people in utter desperation go back and sell themselves. The last curse is what came to fruition. It is not written about, it is not talked about. We focus instead on the Babylonian exile, but it points to the true horror of the final curse and what it must have meant to Moses to proclaim such a thing. We don't know what the fate of the Jews who ended up back there was, but we do know it was the small kernel of exiles from Babylon who returned to Israel and rebuilt the temple, Jerusalem, and the country, and gave the land a second life. Friends, we are coming into the season of introspection and questions. Don't forget the warning that Moses gave at the end of Numbers when he said to be careful not to add to the words, which also means to be careful where the Torah stops and interpretation begins. Shortly, the 10 days of soulful examination begins, and we have to examine and question our aspects of self. Don't wait. We should question all the time. During the Middle Ages, with the advent and rise of Kabbalah, an interesting phenomenon took place. We saw the preponderance of writing being done under other older names, such as the Book of Formation by Abraham. This gives credibility to its authorship. How much of Deuteronomy is like that? How much is ascribed to Moses but doesn't quite fit the other books? Is it a later priestly writing, which can assume the force of law if written by Moses and not by somebody else? It takes you back to the great question that we asked before. How do you know? Friends, never stop asking yourselves that. Don't blindly follow anyone or anything without using your judgment, your conscience, your morals, your ethics, your free will, and your boundless gift and ability to ask questions. Why do we never get an answer when we're knocking at the door with 1,000 million questions about hate, death, and war? Because when we stop and look around us, there is nothing that we need in a world of persecution that is burning in its greed. Why do we never get an answer when we're knocking at the door? Because the truth is hard to swallow. That's what the war of love is for. Have a fantastic week, friends. Thank you for joining me. Congratulations, Noah. Congratulations, Bob. Happy birthday, sweetie. Friends, get ready for a new life. Be well, be happy, be healthy, and be blessed. I would ask any of you listening or watching to please go to my Facebook page, which is linked to our website, and like the page, assuming you like the page. Anyhow, love to you all. Shabbat Shalom. Fantastic to see you. Look forward to seeing you again next week. Take care. Bye.